I think it's gone. Okay, so anyway, welcome. My name is James Dearsley here. I'm the marketing manager at Beecraft magazine. For those of you who may know a little bit about us, we've been around for an awful long time. We're coming up to our century, I think. Is it next year, Claire, or is it this year?
1917. Well, we were started, so it's 2017.
There we are. Not far off. We're getting there. We're getting there.
We're getting there. Volume 97 at the moment.
I wonder if there are any beekeepers who were there when it started.
Yeah, I've been editing it since volume 1.
Absolutely no comment whatsoever. Not one iota. But anyway, look, thank you for joining our regular hangout. So we have these once a month, and we try and pick a different topic every single month and see where we get to with it all. And this month we picked up on beekeeping photography, and it's partly because of an initiative that we are running with hashtag #BeeCraftPhoto, which we'll come on to in a little bit later. But what I thought we'd first of all do, and Simon has popped out, and he'll probably pop back in again in a second. I thought we'd get everyone just introduce themselves, sort of one by one, just so that everyone gets an idea of who everyone else is. So Claire, do you want to just start off and just let everyone know who you are, and in particular about your photography, because obviously you're a photography fan. That's why we're here.
Hi, I'm Claire. I'm the editor, as James has already said, and I haven't been doing it since volume 1, but I have been doing it for 20 years. So it's still quite a long time. But my interest in, my interest in photography goes back to when I was a kid, because my dad taught chemistry, and I had a little black and white, it wasn't a Brownie camera, but it had a bellows, and I used to take films, and then we developed them in the kitchen. So that's sort of when I started, and they were crap photographs really, but they're records of my early life. Probably don't want to know that, but anyway. But then I married, when I met and married my husband 30 odd years ago, and he was the county beekeeping advisor for Northamptonshire, and he took a lot of bee photographs. Beekeeping photographs for his lectures, so interesting things like porter bee escapes and wide top bars, things like that. But he also had an interest in taking close-ups of bees. He taught me how to do it, and if you like, the rest's history, because not only did I get interested in beekeeping photography and close-up macro photography, but I also then expanded into other wildlife photography. So I've done quite a lot of things like penguins and lions and things like that. So it can lead you into all sorts of things. It's also taken me all around the world, which is really quite nice.
Yeah, it's a fabulous thing. And so just to sort of clarify, because what I'm really conscious of here, we've got very traditionalist photography from the beekeeping side, and then we're going into the sort of the more modern side. And so I wanted to introduce Hilary, who's very kindly joined us from the US. And Hilary, would you mind just introducing yourself for a second for everyone's benefit?
I'm Hilary. I'm from San Diego, California. I have a beekeeping business called Girl Next Door Honey, and I have an Instagram page where I post a lot of photos of bees. I use mainly my iPhone to take the photos, and I have a macro attachment for my iPhone, but I don't use it too often. So mostly I'm just doing a lot of work with my iPhone.
And I think there's something which we've probably just got to clarify here a little bit, because obviously we've got the traditional side of actually using the sorts of cameras that Claire is using, and Simon, I know, because we'll come on Simon in a minute, but you're using your mobile phone, you're posting online using Instagram. So just, would you mind clarifying for people that perhaps are not aware of what Instagram is, exactly what it is, how you're posting, where you're posting?
Instagram is an application that you can download on your phone. It's like Facebook, but it's more for photographs. So you can subscribe to certain users, and then you have a feed, and their images will show up as they post them. So you can follow certain people and then always see their images. So you can basically log on to the application and then see the people you're following and get see all their photos and updates. And it's very image based, so it's just a big image and then a little caption underneath, and people can comment on it and ask questions. So I've actually used it to teach a lot of people about bees, and also beekeeping tips and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I must say, from my experience, the whole genre of beekeeping photography is absolutely huge in the Instagram world, and anybody who's interested in beekeeping photography, just to have a look at bees, they should check out certainly what Hillary's doing, and we will do in a minute, but also just the genre of beekeeping on Instagram is massive. I don't know if you found that, Hillary, but I mean, the amount of visual imagery which is out there is just absolutely phenomenal. So well worth checking out. And then coming on to Simon. So Simon, thank you for joining us. I'm just going to unmute you for a second, so hopefully people can hear you. I think I've actually muted you so many times that I'm now struggling to unmute you. There you go. You're unmuted. So yeah, I was madly poking you earlier on saying mute, mute, mute. Simon, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit about and talk about your sort of history with beekeeping photography as well.
All right. Well, I'm Simon Croce. I'm a Lincolnshire beekeeper. Currently down in Cornwall, doing a bit of beekeeping down in Cornwall. But yeah, it's fantastic because it was photography that actually brought me into beekeeping for another subject. You know, being a photographer, similar to Claire, from a young child, I did actually have a box brownie, but I didn't do any of my nature wildlife photography with a box brownie. But as soon as I could afford my own, I bought an SLR, and then some years later a macro lens. Yeah, and beekeeping, the more I wanted to learn about it, I found that I could do that through taking photographs of various things that the bees and the beekeeping world gave me, and then go and study them. And that's led me to travel. Got some recognition and awards. Just by wanting to share those photographs, and people picked up on those, thinking they were pretty cool. And then, yeah, it's nice to be able to travel and share and do things like this. So I'm looking forward to helping people wherever I can tonight.
Okay, great. So what we're going to try and do as we're going through this today is go through a variety of different sort of steps in terms of tips and tricks, and actually just having a look at some of the photos that you guys are taking. I mean, there are some phenomenal ones. I just want to do quickly is, for those of you who are watching this, I'm just going to screen share something for a second, just to say that what we always do is we always encourage you to ask questions. And I'm just sharing my screen here of the Beecraft Hangout page, and you'll see, if this is the screen that you're looking at the moment, you'll see my cursor. It's underneath Simon, looking lovely already in the image. You'll see there is, or there should be, an ability underneath the video to ask a question. So if you've ever got any questions you want to pop about anything that we ask about live, so this is a 15th of July, just gone 8 o'clock, do click here to ask a question, and I'll happily bring you in. But secondly, while I'm here, is we're talking about this Beecraft photo aspect. And the reason we're doing this a lot is because we've now got a section on our website which is all about the best beekeeping photos taken throughout each week. It's a post that we're putting out every single Friday, and we're basically curating the best beekeeping photos from around the web that we're pulling together. So you can actually, I've just jumped ahead of myself. You can actually have a look at some of the photos for each week on here. So I'll teach you a little bit later how you can have a look at these photos every single week, and we'll get them up. So the first thing I want to do is actually bring in some photos for you guys to see, and I'm going to bring in Hillary. I'm actually going to bring in yours to start with because it's very, very easy for me to share, and perhaps you can just talk us through some of these as I share your stream from Instagram. These are just, so for those of you who aren't aware, this is Hillary's page. And do you just want to talk us through a little bit about how you're taking some of these photos, Hillary?
Which ones?
Let's have a look. Should we just do this one here? Can you see
Okay,
that?
so that one's taken with, this is actually something new I'm trying. It's a jeweler's loop. And so you hold it up to your iPhone camera lens as you're taking the picture. And it's like a little magnifying glass, basically.
Cool.
Okay, and then so you got some. I mean, this is a fascinating one, which I think is absolutely beautiful. It's a massive queen bee right in the middle.
This one's just. I just recently upgraded phones, so up until like last week, I was still using an iPhone 4S, and I just got the 6. So this is using an iPhone 6 camera,
Beautiful.
and then I just crop it. I think the trick that people miss when they're using their iPhone cameras, especially when they're trying to take more of a close-up photo, is they try to get really close to the subject with their phone, and then it gets out of focus because it will not focus at such a close range. So what you really need to do is pull back with your phone, get it in focus by tapping the screen of your phone, and then take the photo and then go back in later and crop it, and you'll have a clear image that you can actually, the resolution is so high you can crop it and still have a really clear image.
That's really
that looks like a close-up.
That's nice.
So what you're saying there, from anybody who's interested in using their mobile phones to take photos, is anything with a good resolution, i.e. an iPhone 6 and anything like that with these, I mean, I use Samsung phones, for example. Actually, you can take them further away than you think, and you just crop up a little bit closer.
Yeah, it's this same thing, iPhone. I think my intern took this one. This is an iPhone 5. And then I think I might have cropped it a little bit.
And interestingly, and this is actually for, I'm going to come on to, I mean, there's a whole, I mean, I like these sorts of photos when you sort of bring in the hive element to it as well. And you've got the fanning at the front, which is just lovely. But I think the most important thing for anybody watching this is the sort of thing you can do on your mobile phone. I mean, how you don't get propolis and everything like that and honey on your phone, I don't know. How do you avoid that?
You do.
I don't. I don't avoid that. I do have propolis. I think I made a tweet the other day that was like, if you don't have propolis on your phone, you're not doing it right. But yeah, I mean, at the end of a bee removal, when I've been taking photos with my phone, the phone is completely covered in honey.
Yeah.
I love all these. I just think it's amazing the quality of the photos you can take now with your phones. You know, all of this stuff. And incidentally, just for people who are watching this, I mean, this is all using Instagram, and this is actually for me using Instagram.com, and I don't know if you guys can see this at the top here, but this is Instagram.com/girlnextdoorhoney, and you can see all of Hillary's imagery up here of all the photos she's taken with her phone, or the intern that you've got working with you. So it's great to see. And so Instagram, what it's allowing you to do, and you can see up here, it's like a social network. So we've got 535 people have actually liked this page. A lot of people are commenting on the image that you've got, and we'll come on to a little bit more of that later on, because I'm still intrigued by the fact that you've just bought yourself a brand new phone, and you're more than willing to get propolis and honey all over it. Don't know how you do that.
I'm more worried about breaking the screen. That's actually why I got a new phone, because I broke the screen on my old phone, and then I replaced it, and then I broke it again like a month later, and I was like, it's a sign. I'm just going to get a new phone. Great.
And I tell you what, before I move on, because I think it's important, what would be your best tip for anybody who perhaps doesn't want to go down the more traditional side of photography? And I mean, everyone's got their mobile phones now, so that's fine. But what would be your top tip for somebody who wants to just use their mobile phone?
Don't be afraid to get a weird angle, I would say, and experiment with different angles. I mean, you can sometimes I'll take like 10 or 15 photos of the same subject at just different angles, and then I don't worry about trying to look at it. I think a lot of people get hung up trying to see the screen, and there's a glare from being outside, and you can't even see what you're taking a photo of half the time. I don't really worry about that. I just try to get it in focus and take several different angles, and then I go into and just pick the best one. Or sometimes I didn't get a good photo and I just leave it off. But I think just don't be afraid to take a bunch of photos, and don't be afraid to experiment with different angles.
Yeah, good.
Fair enough. Okay, well, look, let's bring Simon. I've got a whole load of your stuff up, so I'm going to... Is there a particular favourite of yours from the ones that you shared that we can sort of talk about and
Yes.
go through?
Yes. Is it in black and white? The black and white one?
The one with the chat. Is that the one?
No, the bee in flight.
Ah, right. Let me try and find that, and I'll bring it up.
I sent you that.
Oh yeah, there we go.
But,
This is stunning. So Simon, let's just talk. So what do you use to take photos like these? And I'm going to try and get this up as you're talking.
Well,
What sort of cameras do you use?
just like Hillary, I've just got the iPhone 6, which is covered in propolis. It's only 2 weeks old. It's covered in propolis and honey, which does give us a few problems. Got a little compact, which is completely waterproof. I use it for that as well, but it's great to have around the beehives because afterwards I can just put it in the sink and wash it off. And so if you are going to use one of those, just check sure that it is waterproof. But fantastic camera. And this is.
You got a whole. I mean, how?
This is the daddy. This is the daddy.
How on earth? I mean, Christ. I mean, I know we talk about taking bee boxes to the beehive, but your bee box is not going to be full of hive tools. It's going to be full of cameras. I mean, that's.
Well, having the beehive in the garden is quite important for me. And if I see anything, I normally take this with me when I'm opening the hives in the garden, or if I see anything in particular, then I'll go and get it. But the ring flash makes a bit of a difference.
Okay, we'll come on to ring flash in a minute. But
yeah, okay.
You and Claire can have a geek out on which sort of which is the best camera to use. So let's not go down.
Oh.
I'm going to show you this for a second because I think this is an absolutely stunning shot, and maybe you can just sort of talk us through how you took this shot.
Well, that was taken a few years back now when I was just getting into it, and I was just basically in the garden, just enjoying my bees. And I mean, I'd been influenced just like most of us were by Claire as much as anyone, with all the fantastic photographs that I've seen of Claire's. And you just look for something as much as you like watching or looking at other people's photographs. That inspires you to go and try and take your own of a similar sort of thing. And I'd seen the bees coming into the hive, and I just wanted to try and capture that. Well, what I actually got. It was a beautiful summer's afternoon. The bees were just so intent on foraging, coming backwards and forwards. One point I would stress that if you are going to photograph bees at the hive, you should really seriously think about wearing protection until you get to know your bees, especially if they're bees that are strange to you. But the hive in the garden on this particular day, they were so placid. I had no protection on, and I just lay underneath the hive. It was elevated up about 2 feet, and just watched the bees coming in. And I just followed the bees, panning with the camera. Yeah, so basically following the bees in. The autofocus on the camera, it wasn't working as quick as I wanted to, so I had to set the camera onto manual focus, and then focused on a point at the hive entrance, and then just tracked back to the bee, and then just followed about 50 or 60 bees coming in. Yeah, a little bit of work, but trial and error. I mean, it's a lovely image, and I'd encourage anyone to have a go at trying to do that, because eventually you will get something.
So, okay, let me flip this back a little bit to Hillary there for a second, because Hillary, obviously you're exclusively using your phone. So,
yeah.
Have you got that risk that Simon has there, which is it's a bit of guesswork, and obviously getting focus all the time with a mobile phone is not as easy, I would say.
Yeah, I think it would be less easy to do that shot with a mobile phone. You have to just get extremely lucky. And I do try to do that technique that he was talking about, where I'll focus on the entrance and then pull back a little bit to try to catch a bee in flight. The problem is your phone wants to automatically focus, so it will change the focus on you. So it's just sheer luck if you get that picture. It's really hard to get. Actually, my best images of that were not taken on a phone. Those were taken with a DSLR.
Yeah.
And then
this is where I would use manual focus. I wouldn't use automatic focus in that situation, simply because the camera is trying to hunt for the thing which is moving anyway. So it just makes it really difficult. Even with some of the tracking that you've got on the cameras these days.
I think Hillary picked up on something earlier where take lots of photographs. Memory or digital memory is so cheap. Just just keep taking lots. Don't put it on burst or try it on burst, but try and be a little bit creative and selective. But just take lots and lots and lots.
I think where people mess up is that they take lots and lots and lots and then they share them all, and it's like, just pick the best one. Delete all. People really need to learn to edit and delete their photos afterwards. So yes, take a lot of photos, but then pick one afterwards.
Absolutely. I'll go with that one.
I've seen your camera, Claire. There's thousands of them, and even that's hard enough. But
well, I have several hard drives absolutely stuffed with photographs that I need to go through and delete 99% of them. But it's finding the time. So, I mean, digital is great, but it's also got its real downside as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I'll tell you
Actually, getting rid of the rubbish.
But let's just go to that one point that all of you have said as a big tip, which is always using manual focus rather than the automatic focus. Because obviously with the automatic focus, it's trying to focus on something stationary, I would assume, and something as small as a bee, you're never going to be able to get a fast enough camera to be able to auto-focus on a bee flying in. So if you want to do that shot.
Yeah, for that sort of shot, yeah, I would say manual focus, yeah.
Okay, what's another favourite then, Simon? Let's go through with another one of yours.
I mean, the portrait. I mean, we talked about the portrait. You mentioned the black and white portrait.
Okay, let's bring this one up. So this was using a digital SLR, I presume?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, let me bring that up.
And again, it's part of what I was trying to capture and what I still try and capture, all aspects of what's going on with the bees and the beekeeping. And this is one of my friends, David Kemp, who taught me quite a lot about beekeeping, in particular grafting. And I just wanted to capture that image of David doing some of his work. And in that particular instance, that was entered in a show, and it was thrown out because the judges said they can't really see what he's doing, although it's very suggestive that he is grafting. No, I don't think you judge this one, Claire.
Certainly didn't.
but from that feedback, the following year I entered another very, very similar photograph where everything was in complete view, whatever's going on in his hands there, the tool was visible, the cell that he was grafting into, and that won a first prize. So if you do enter competitions, work on the feedback. But I just like the lighting on that particular photograph, and it just captures some of that other less vigorous activity of beekeeping.
Yeah, I think it's important to cover all aspects of beekeeping because there's so much involved with beekeeping and attached to beekeeping. It's not just the bees. It's the people, it's the activities, it's just everything.
Yeah.
Well, if I must, one of my favourite photos, which appeared in the Beecraft Photo of the Week last week, or maybe the week before, was this one that you did, Hillary, talking about the variety of photos that you can come up with. I'm just going to share this now so you can see it. I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's Hillary, you've got to tell us the story of this photo because it's fantastic. Can you guys see that? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That was last week. I do live bee removal around town, and this was an elderly gentleman who had his house was broken into two parts. So he had a bit of a back house that I believe used to be his late wife's studio, and she was a fashion designer. And anyway, all of her stuff is in there, and lots of other stuff that he doesn't need anymore. And it had been in there for I don't know how many years, and the rats got into it, and the ceiling collapsed from water damage. And so this is the inside of that building, and we actually had to clear quite a lot of rubbish out of there to get to this hive, which is hanging. It's about 4 feet by 4 feet and 2 feet down from the ceiling. And it was just a tremendous job. Took us 2 days to finish it up. We actually found 2 queens in it. I suspect there might have been more than 2 queens. I don't know. We didn't find any swarm cells.
Supersedure.
Or supersedure cells. I didn't see any cells at all. So I have read that there are sometimes in these massive hives there are 2 queens, and I think maybe that's what we saw. And I suspected once that I transferred them into a hive box that they would swarm on me and one of the queens would leave. And I think that's exactly what happened, because I checked them yesterday and it seemed like a lot less bees. There was still a queen in there, or at least she was laying eggs. But yeah, it was just a really crazy removal and a massive hive.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very atmospheric.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I mean, that's
Feel it, yeah.
So I'm just going to come off of this screen share for a second. Because, I mean, that's what it's all about, though, isn't it? It's about variety with photography and looking at different situations and using different lights. Because, again, what I see in a lot of your photos, Hillary, is the fact that you're outside an awful lot, and the sun it's San Diego, right? You are?
Yeah.
So the sun in San Diego, I mean, it's like perfect photography weather.
It's never cloudy. It's always 70 degrees Fahrenheit.
We don't get that very often, do we? It's awful. But let me bring up some of your ones, Claire. What ones do you want me to bring up and that you can explain and how you've done it?
I don't know. What do you want to talk about?
Why don't we go for the Virgin emerging?
Yes, that's quite an interesting one.
All right, I'm just loading this up, so we'll. While that's loading, your camera is different to Simon's, I presume. It's still a digital SLR.
It is. It's a Canon version. His is an Olympus one, I believe.
It is,
I don't know if you can see it. Nah, it's not worth it. Anyway, it's another big one like Simon's, and I have a macro lens and a ring flash on the front.
Well, I'll tell you what, on that, because I'm sure somebody out here has got a question on this, which is about that flash that you have, which is called a ring flash, Simon. So you both use a ring flash rather than the flashes on the top. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's because
for the close-up
when
work.
you get close to something. Oh, do you want to explain this, Simon? Yeah, you have to get the right depth of field. You have to have a very small aperture, a hole in the lens. So therefore, you have to have a long exposure to get enough light through the small hole to do the exposure. If you've got a big hole, you take less light to take the right exposure. But with bees and things, they're moving. So what you do is supply a hell of a lot of light with the flash, and that goes straight through the aperture and gives you the right exposure.
Okay.
Don't set it off.
Can I add to that, James?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, do.
Just that if my thumb was the subject and you came in with your camera really, really close, it might be also that you could put the subject into shade. Yeah, thrown a shadow by the way you're coming in to take the photograph. The ring flash, this illuminated section here in a moment, if I press if I fired it, it would put light right at where I needed it, so it would get rid of all the shadows, and the light is also diffused through this diffuser, which spreads the light nice and evenly, so you don't get, really heavy burnout where everything's white. So, as much as being able to give you a nice even light, it's getting, good strong light as well.
Yeah,
for that.
onto the subject, onto the focus of the lens.
Okay, so flip that around a second for maybe people who don't want to invest all the cash in terms of ring flashes and everything like that. Hillary, when the sun is in San Diego and there's cloud in the sky, or you're inside, do you use a flash or anything like that with your camera phones at all?
Usually not. They usually don't come out very well because the flash on the phone is, like he was saying, it burns it out a little too much, or the wings of the bees reflect a lot of light. So I see when I use the flash, it's just kind of like a bunch of wings lit up, and you can't really see a lot of detail.
So perhaps, so the downer on the mobile phone stuff. I mean, we've just had as she says, it's more of a share from Alison, who says it's not technically a question, it's more of a share. But during the winter, she uses her mobile phone on a video setting with the flash on under an open mesh floor. It gives a great opportunity to assess if the colony is still alive and in a cluster. without intrusion, and the images are fab too. Okay.
That's a great thing. I mean, I used to do in my early years some of my brood inspections from photographs that I'd taken. So I just took a photograph of a full brood frame because I didn't want to open my hive longer than I needed to, and I would then take those photographs and do some more study back home on the computer screen. So what Alison's doing with that is pretty good as well. Yeah.
So yeah, I like it. It's the non-intrusion aspect of it, isn't it? But look, I promised you this Virgin Queen emerging. So let me just bring this up. This is one of yours, Claire. And perhaps you can just explain it to us as to how you captured this.
Well, this is a Virgin Queen emerging. It's as simple as that. You hang around and you wait until she comes out. And then you put her in the top again and you take her again as she comes out the bottom again. In other words, you know, don't always believe what you see in a photograph, because this poor Virgin went round and round several times. She was actually hatching. I'd taken some queen cells out of a hive and just put them in something, and she was actually hatching there. So I thought, right, I'll take the opportunity to take a picture of her. So the queen cell is open at the top. It's being pushed onto a frame. I mean, anybody who knows what's going on realizes that it's not in its right position, not in a natural position on the comb. And as I say, I just sort of picked her up and pushed her back in again to take the next shot. So I've got several.
Could I just make
every thought I ever had of these beautiful queens emerging in all of these books.
Could I just make a comment on that one, James? Yeah. That lovely photo. Is there any chance you could put it back up again?
Yeah, hang on one second. Let me just get it up.
Because I think there's an important thing there with one of the downsides of using ring flash.
Yes,
there is. Yep.
Yes, right. Let me bring that up.
And it's something that, you know, people might notice on that photograph, but might not be aware.
Yes, it notices very much on there because the cells are full of honey. You get the reflection of the flash gun.
Just where my cursor is at the bottom.
That's right.
You can actually see that my flash gun consists of 2 tubes rather than just one circular tube, which is why you get the sort of sausage reflections. Yeah. Have you got any way of getting over that, Simon? Does your diffuser stop that or not?
No, it doesn't. No, I still get it, but it's just selecting the background. I mean, the lighting on that cell and the queen was perfect. You've just got to take that hit, but be aware of that reflection. There's a photograph.
You can't always do that though.
No,
that's the problem with me.
But there's a photograph in my collection, James, of the eggs in the bottom of the cells, which again they demonstrate the use of the ring flash, getting really, really close up to your subject. Yet you've still got lots and lots of light where it's needed to get that exposure.
Yeah, I'm just going to bring that one in here actually, and I think you can probably see that now. Can you?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's a little bit of reflection right down in the bottom of the cells, but not as stark as what they are when you've got that reflection in the nectar in the cells.
Yeah. You also get it reflecting in the bee's eyes as well, which can be a problem. Sometimes it sits okay and it looks as though it's just a catch light in the eye, but other times it is in the wrong place and it looks really weird.
Well, the interesting thing for me that I learned recently is actually the ring flashes are particularly favoured in portrait photography when obviously we're taking photos of people, because the little ring flash is actually in their eyes, and it's much better than a box flash, which looks a bit weird because obviously it's not in the shape of an eye. So there you are. It just doesn't suit bees. Okay, well, look, I'll tell you what I'll do, I'll come back onto some photos maybe a little bit later to sort of talk through, but one of the things I think is really important that I know people have wanted to discuss is around, I don't know if it's legislative stuff, who owns photos, how you can protect your own photos, and I want to start, Hilary, with you, because you're taking these photos and you're publishing them to Instagram. So I mean, does that mean that they are publicly available? Does it mean that people can use them? Do you care that people can use them? Is it a mentality you've adapted? What's your thoughts on people stealing your photos?
I don't really care. Maybe if they were using it for evil or something, I would care. But I can't think of a situation where, you know, someone would use a photo. Maybe if someone was using it for advertising and making money off of it somehow, then it would be kind of annoying. But I actually encourage people to repost the photos. There's some apps out there where you can regram someone else's photos and share it on your own feed. And a lot of people do that. Sometimes they ask permission, sometimes they don't. I don't really care as long as I'm credited. Even if I wasn't credited, I'm not too worried about it.
And it's an interesting stance, because there's a real, I think there's a, I don't mean to be rude and say there's a demographic gap here, but there's this mentality now in the social world that when you're putting things out there, which you are with Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, you are publicly sharing your images out there, and every single social network has slightly different terms and conditions based on who owns the photos. Because arguably, if I'm right, Instagram owns that, or has the rights to use that photo, or they try to anyway. Am I right in that, Hilary, or am I wrong in that?
I think you're right, but I don't even know for sure.
Yeah, I think it's just something you've got to be careful of. And so certainly what I know, because we had a look at this for the Beecraft photo side of things, is if ever you're going onto Instagram and you like the look of a photo and you want to use it, you have the ability, as we do with Beecraft, is to embed the image in a blog post or on a website, and you can actually legally do that without asking anybody's permission to do it. Because by the very virtue of embedding an image, you're giving the recognition back to, in this case, Girl Next Door Honey.
Right. So for me, that's kind of a positive, because that means that people might get more followers out of that. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what I'm just going to do, just so people understand what I'm saying. I'm just going to bring up one of our ones from a couple of weeks ago. So this is the Beekeeping Photo of the Week a couple of weeks ago. And this is Sarah B. Girl and one of her Instagram photos. And you can see that she's acknowledged at the top. And at the bottom, it's got all of her likes and comments and everything that she's actually put. Mm-hmm. And it's giving her the recognition back. And so when you're embedding a photo, and if I just show you the process, so let's say, for example, as I do, and I really like this photo, you say, actually, I'd love to use that in a blog post or in an article that I've written. You can, if you want to, use this little feature at the bottom here, which is the little 3 dots, and you've got this ability to use this embed, and it gives you a small bit of code up here, which when you copy and paste that into your own blog articles, the articles start to look like this, sorry, the images look like this with all the recognition to Instagram and, most importantly, to the user. And it's exactly the same, and I'm going to try and see if I can find one at the bottom here. That's one of yours, there we are. Some frames, which some supers, which I love. It's the same for Twitter as well. You can do exactly the same thing on Twitter, which I'm ironically not going to have this time, am I? No, I haven't got any that week. But it does give you the recognition back to the original photographer. So, and what you're saying, that's what's important for you, is it, Hilary? It's just this recognition thing.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Simple as that. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, it is.
I'll tell you the reason why, because it is refreshing. Because morally, there's still an argument. Legally, you can just do it. You can just post anything. But morally and social media, I think there's always this, you have to credit the photographer if it's a share on a social media site. But Claire, Simon, what are your thoughts on that from your less social photography side?
I've got an Instagram account, and I'm on Twitter and Facebook. I mean, I've posted several thousand photographs on Facebook, and it is nice to see them get liked and shared. And you know, I do see them popping up, the photographs here, there, and everywhere, and sometimes without any credit. And again, just like Hilary, I'll just say it'd be nice if you do share them to give me the credit, so that it just, you know, generates that profile. People always ask you for your photographs. Always ask you for your photographs, and it all depends what they're going to be using them for. I don't know. It's maintaining or retaining that property copyright of the images.
So Claire, your thoughts, because I know obviously being an author of many, many books, you have a lot of issues with using photography for books, which is a totally different minefield, isn't it?
Yeah, no publisher has got any picture budget when you come try to publish a book, which really annoys me considerably because, I mean, we're just in the middle of doing one on urban beekeeping, and they've got a picture budget of 250 quid, which, if you say 25 quid a picture, it'll make, you know, it'll give me 10 pictures in a whole of a book of 60,000 words. And I just think it's so short-sighted, but I mean, that's their decision. Whereas another book has got 400 photos in it, and that has proved extremely popular. This business of copyright is a real minefield. As the photographer, you own the copyright, which actually means, I mean, you say it's legal to pick them off Instagram and Facebook and everything, but I don't know quite how that ties up with somebody, the photographer, owning the copyright. I just don't know how it works. But the best one I ever had was when I was in Kiev for the Apimondia conference, and we went out to see a beekeeping museum, and the taxi driver dropped us a bit further down the road. I mean, he didn't know where we were going, neither did we, but I mean, he certainly landed us in the right place. But we asked somebody, and we walked back up the road, and there was this big banner round a sort of market area, you know, open space where they were going to have a bee market. Well, I assume it was. And I turned to my companion and I said, "Do you see that photo there?" And she said, yeah, it's all right, isn't it? I said, "Yes, it's mine." And that was in the middle of Kiev. Now, where the hell they got it from, I have no idea.
That's your Instagram account, Claire.
But, you know, it's rather... I think the thing that I struggle with is that I toss up my beekeeping, my photography equipment, and it's enough to buy a small car. I have to insure it for about as much as, you know, you'd buy a fairly small car. And yet, book publishers, magazine publishers, they expect you to give these photographs for nothing. And when you say, well, have you got a budget? You know, you sort of get, oh, what you mean you weren't paying for them? And I think the social media has not helped this, because, you know, that you assume that because it's on the web you can take it and use it for nothing, and that's not actually true. We have to take a lot of care in Beecraft to make sure that all the photographs we use, we have permission to use one way or another. I mean, we've had problems because we happened to use one by, you know, in error, and the person who took it came back at us. So now we're extremely careful, because if people want to pursue the copyright issue, then they can.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And certainly you ask about how do social networks get away with it, partly because of the terms and conditions you sign when you sign up for an account. You're essentially signing away the copyright of your imagery, depending on the site you're on. So it's,
perhaps that's why I haven't got an Instagram account.
Probably is. But then it's funny though you say that, because from a photography side of things, you look at the whole model that Getty Images went through recently. And please correct me if I've gone wrong here, which is they were so fed up with people taking the images on Getty Images, and they spent so much money in legal fees trying to get people to pay up for the images, that they just said, no, do you know what? We're going to give everything away for free. All of the images on Getty Images are absolutely free. And in fact, what they did is they changed the model of revenue generation to a sponsorship model, because on every single link, when you embedded the link, like I've showed you to do with Hillary's photos, there is a link. There was a search engine link back to Getty Images, which was basically making Getty Images the most powerful website out there for imagery. Therefore, meaning they get even more traffic, which meant that they could go to a sponsorship model, because they realised that from the sort of hassle and the money they were doing to track down these people stealing photos, it wasn't worth the time or effort. But I'm just going to give a little bit of a tip again for people if you are concerned about using images. One of the things that I would suggest is if you're going to go onto Google to search for this stuff, I'm just going onto Google here for a second, and look for beekeeping photos. What you can do is if you go to this image tab at the top here, I'll just see if I can load it up a little bit. There we are. If you click on images, you'll get all of the images that you could ever conceivably imagine for beekeeping photos. Now, you can't just jump on here and steal any of these images to go on. One of the things that I would always advise you to look at is this search tools option at the top here. And if you click on that, you'll have this option here saying usage rights. And if you click on that, you've got all of these different ways of filtering out those photos. One of them is labeled for reuse here, which is the one that I use quite often. But you've got all of these different licenses, and it's worth looking at what's called the Creative Commons license, which will it's all to do with the beekeeping. With the photo sharing. But I always then filter by reuse, which means that I'm able to use that without any knock-on ramifications. So it's just a bit of advice. Okay.
Creative Commons is extremely useful.
Yeah, although it's difficult to understand though for people who are not necessarily familiar with it. And
true.
I mean, it is, isn't it? I mean, there's so many different realms of Creative Commons licenses, which obviously, Hilary, you take no notice of whatsoever. You don't really care about it, exactly.
I mean, I just take my own photos. I don't need to use anyone else's.
Yeah.
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 I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm in a slightly different position because we're obviously looking for specific photographs to illustrate articles in the magazine.
Right.
So we're using it for creative gain. Okay. Well, look, I tell you what, we've actually gone far longer than I ever expected to, so I do apologise to these guys to take on. But so one last question to all of you, which is there anything that in your setups that you could not do without when you're taking your beekeeping photos? And let's start with you, Simon. Is there anything there that is an absolute essential?
I think on the big camera, on the digital SLR, it's got to be my macro lens. Although I fell in love with the iPhone a few years ago, and this 6 is pretty cool. But it's the macro lens.
So what is a macro lens for those people who are not necessarily familiar with it?
Well, it's been specifically designed and made for use for close-up photography more than anything else. I mean, it doubles up as a good portrait lens, but it will allow me to get, within an inch or a few inch, 50 millimeters of the subject, and it will give you almost, well, in most cases, 1-to-1 plus reproduction. So, rather than being a long way back with the iPhone and other cameras, or having to zoom into the subject, you can get within touching distance almost. So it's a macro lens.
And Hilary, you said there's a macro attachment for the iPhone, right?
Yeah, what I was using was an Allo clip, and it comes with a macro attachment. You can do 10x or 15x, and now there's a 20x, I think, and it just snaps on to your iPhone. But now that I have a new phone, it doesn't fit, so that's why I was using the jeweler's loop. And I actually kind of like it better because it's easier to control, a little bit easier to control.
So do you just hold that loop up to the camera then?
Yeah.
Or does it actually fit onto it?
No, you just hold it up.
All right.
Clever, isn't it? So is that the one thing you do without, or you wouldn't do without, Hilary, or is there anything else in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I just need my phone. That's all. I just need the camera.
How cool is that? So Claire, you're insuring a small car, and Hilary's just got to hold her phone.
Yeah, well, I do have other lenses which are included in the car, which I don't use for beekeeping.
I mean, that's my main reason for using the phone is because it's just so easy to have in my pocket when I'm beekeeping. I always have it. These opportunities come up I see something cool and I have my phone, I have my camera in my pocket versus lugging around my DSLR, which is actually pretty heavy and big. And I already have so much stuff that I have to carry around for beekeeping.
Hilary, do you sometimes go out specifically with your digital SLR and all to take particular photographs?
Yeah, for my website, I try to take them with that because they're better quality and they just look nicer big on the website like that. So I try to take, like I do these beehive tours and I try to bring that for those to get nice group shots of people and close-ups and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that the problem with using something like a phone at a distance and then cropping it is that you reduce the size of the file. And as you say, you lose the quality if you then blow it up. It's the quality goes down quite quickly.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of my photos would hold up in large print because they're
on the internet, on the computer, they're fine because you're looking at a low resolution image anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's another interesting point, because where do we look at most of our images these days? We tend not to print them out. We look at them on multimedia devices. So, you know, the iPhone images are, if you just take care with it, are fantastic for that.
Yeah.
I think we lost James. I don't know.
Have we lost James?
He's frozen on my screen.
Yeah, it seems to have got frozen. Yeah.
He might have cut it because I think he said it was.
There we go.
Time was running. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
No,
Right, there we go.
it's
Sorry
still
about
there.
that. I'm still here. Sorry, that was I made the mistake of rushing to 2 screens to check on some emails, see if they'd been coming in. So I do apologise. Okay, well, look, I think I'm going to thank you guys for that, because there was obviously some really great valid points on there. Hilary, thank you for joining us all the way from San Diego. I mean, it's you can't miss your photos on Instagram. Let's put it that way. You are the Instagram queen of beekeeping. So we're going to repurpose this as an article all about beekeeping photography, and we'll have a link there so that you can just click on and steal all of Hilary's photos. and we'll put a link, and so that's instagram.com/girlnextdoorhoney if you want to go and have a look at that now. Claire, is there anywhere we can see and not steal your images?
No, not unless they've been published in a book or in Beecraft.
Oh, in Beecraft, no, I thought.
Yeah.
And Simon, is there anywhere... Oh, sorry, go on.
Sorry, Simon. Go on. There's something I want to say before we finish, James.
Okay,
so
that's fine. I was just going to say, and Simon, is there anywhere for people to see your photos?
Yeah, Facebook. I put lots and lots on Facebook. Just come and find me on that, Simon Crowson. And on Instagram as well. You can get a link from my Facebook page to Instagram. It's just Cy Crowson. So have a look at that as well.
I shall find you on there. And incidentally, if any of you out there are posting your own images on things like Instagram and Twitter specifically, it's very easy for me to find your images. If you're happy for me to share them, just use the hashtag BeecraftPhoto. It means that I can then collect them very, very easily, and every single Friday we'll just repurpose them as a Beecraft photo of the week. I try and get between 10 and 15 every week of basically the best beekeeping photos out there, and we'll put them together as an article for the website. So please use the hashtag BeecraftPhoto, or send them to me by email. That's fine to do that as well, and I can always give you the acknowledgement by putting a bit of text over the top of the image so that no one can steal them. Sorry, Claire, I interrupted you.
It's all right. I just want to remind everybody that if they've got these fantastic photographs, which I know everybody has, if they would like them to appear on the cover of Beecraft in 2016, then they need to enter them into our photo competition. The details are on the website, and the closing date is the 1st of October. So the way time is going, you don't have very long. But do make sure that do read the rules. Make sure that they fit the rules, because last year we had some fantastic photographs and they just didn't fit the rules, and it was so sad having to knock them out. They just wouldn't crop, because we need a square photograph to go on the magazine. So if your subject goes right across from left to right, then it ain't going to get anywhere. So make sure that you think about your subject, think about the angle you're doing, think about how you can do it slightly differently. As Hilary was saying right at the beginning, get a different view of something. Make sure the files are big enough and send them in.
I would say make them fun as well, because we all look at beekeeping in a different way. And I've got friends, Facebook friends all over the world that a lot of them I can't speak their language and they can't speak mine, but we connect through photography, and we're doing very, very similar things.
Yeah.
Just take lots of photographs and get them posted and shared.
But only pick one.
Filter them out a bit.
All right. Well, look, we're going to finish there, and thank you for all joining us and watching. Again, another Beecraft Hangout. We're going to have another one. I can't remember the exact date, but next month in August. I'm actually not going to be here stuck in a white-walled office. I'm actually going to be over in Italy. So hopefully the broadband will last, and we can get it all live, and I can see you over there. So thank you, Claire, obviously, for joining us as ever, and Simon, thank you for being at your first Hangout.
Thank you.
And Hilary, thank you for your first as well. So really appreciate it.
19th of August.
9th. There we go. 19th of August. Thank you, everybody. And as always, www.bee-craft.com. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Happy sniping.